Yeah, you thought you were tuning in to listen to something about the International Bake Off on like one of them BBC shows, International Cupcake Medley, International Cupcake Off with Steve Cupcake Boy. No, you stumbled into a podcast. It's Binge-Watchers podcast with yours truly, Johnny Spoiler. I spoil the movies I love. Joined as always by the savage Scream Queen herself, Jordan Savage, with
looking
her flock
extra.
of seagulls haircut.
Looking extra disheveled today, so.
Looking extra grizzly. I'm about to say woof woof, but grizzlies don't make a woof woof. I don't know what the sound a grizzly bear makes.
Yeah.
The most dangerous animal I've ever encountered. Sharks were nicer to me than mooses. The moose was the most dangerous animal. They are not nice.
They are scary. Super scary. Yeah.
It'd promise
be interesting to come across the hippopotamus, though. You know, like actually scary.
The hippopotamus?
Yeah, I feel like that'd be terrifying.
Hungry hippos?
Literally, you know?
Yeah.
Crack open a cold box of wine or pour something cold on ice because it's the Binge-Watchers podcast.
And I'm just going to say what the girl says. Crack open a cold box of wine or pour something cold on ice. I haven't done that one in a while. It feels good. It's the Binge-Watchers podcast. As I said a moment ago, Johnny Spoiler and Jordan Savage, we agree that mooses are dangerous. Stay away from them. Don't go camping. The bears are laughing at you. You don't have to worry about them. It's the moose. It's always been the meese.
It's always
somebody
meese.
Write a book and tell the truth about what's the most dangerous thing in the wilderness. Maybe my credit score. I don't even know why I said that, but I was like, that's an easy one. Let's just use that one. What's going on? Tonight we're brought to you by Manscaped. You can actually get 20% off with the code BWPOD, BWPOD on their website, manscaped.com. Off of their order, you can, we're talking about looking grizzly. If you don't want to look like a grizzly, or if you want to trim it up because you got a hot date, or you're trying to impress whomever, get a business deal, improving your own credit, get your Manscaped. And then also, Eddie, if you're trying to Netflix and chill with that person you're trying to impress after having Manscaped, or Ladyscaped, or just Scaped in general, then you can use their code BINGE20 and like ignite your Netflix and chill. Whatever that may be, we're not going to tell. It's like Las Vegas. Whatever happens on the podcast stays on the podcast. Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. However, we've had some accidentally offensive comments from the fans. My gosh.
Oh, goodness. I can't wait to read these tonight then.
Well, here's the thing. You know you're really setting, you're really getting into the zeitgeist, or you're really making an impact among your audience when they start criticizing the way you look. Or when your looks are on their minds at all. And I can tell you, fact right now, her hair is down. She has hair.
I have hair, believe it or not.
Let's start with Jordan's. This is like an inside joke. Jordan will know because it's not the first time I think she's been teased in this department.
Call my dad up. I'll tell you, I have a chrome dog. Call my dad.
Senior Savage. Talk about growing up. So this fan said, LOL, Jordan looks bald in this snippet. They're referring to one of the YouTube thumbnail artworks for one of the episodes we dropped a couple weeks ago. Listen, I was reading that culturally a prominent forehead in history was both the mark of beauty and strength, and her name is Savage, so I think genetically it lines up.
That makes sense to me, you know.
She's not bald. And then this one. And this one is on YouTube itself, and it just says, that hairline. Now listen, theoretically, this comment could be about either one of us hairlines.
I know, they should have been more specific.
However, I feel like with the timing and the other comment, we're really trying to make Jordan feel insecure as a podcaster. Really giving her the business.
For real.
Then, I'm like, oh, we got Manscaped this month. I'll go ahead and Manscape, and I'll make like a shaving video, and I'll make myself look like Hulk Hogan, and I'll do these different beards and mustaches. And then I get a comment like this. Channeling your inner Ron Jeremy? LOL. First of all, let's talk about Ron Jeremy. For 35 years, he was a porn star. I mean, I could describe his penis. It's long and thin. I'm not in that category. I got my own success, but I don't want to be described as long and thin. I also don't want to be described as a porn star. He's also notorious because, you know, even though he was like, I don't know, a friendly porn star that popped up portraying porn stars in comedy movies like 15 years or whatever, here most recently he's being brought up on sexual assault charges, and he's got like 4 cases against him, and he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life, and he's senile. He's got like dementia. So your comparison falls flat because are we both swarthy? Do we have dark hair? And if I have a beard, does it make my hair look darker? Yes. They can't see my exaggerated. I'm like talking with my arms. They can't even see it. Only Jordan can see me like pacing with my hands and arms and like making gestures. Because right now, if you are watching it, it's just a picture of the comment. But anyway, I think Jordan, you handled these comments with more composure than I did, and I only got one.
You know what? If it's coming from my dad, you know, that's like, it's you know, my dad did it first, and so y'all are just copying him. So, you know, I think these people want to show up on my my Instagram.
I don't know. I mean, it's like they want to take it to the schoolyard, though. That's what I'm saying, you know?
Yeah. All right, 4:00. Meet me there by the light pole, by the flag.
Meet you after 5th period lunch, man. Right after the corn dogs. I never fight on an empty stomach. Actually,
you know, and I didn't even see those, and I just so happened to wear my hair down. I'm like, oh, I think this is like the worst is when I have to wear it down. You know?
Also, look, I switched to inner ear headphones, like professional. I was like, surely they exist. I went online and I found Sennheiser that like they have these they're professional mic level headphones, like the ones I gave Jordan, but they're smaller. They go in your ear only because I started to grow my hair out a little bit, and I was like, I don't want the big. Over the ears are better, but I was like, oh, I'm going to be vain and ego-driven and get these other headphones. And the ones I sent to Jordan, they pull your hair back naturally. The headphone was heavy. Anyway, she's being a good sport about it, and I'm just like on the defensive, like a Ninja Turtle. You know, like I'm like, let me get on my Ninja Turtle. Let's katana this shit right now. Like,
hey, I like my slicked back pony. That's all that matters, right? You know? Yeah, exactly.
The legend is true. She has hair.
I'm okay looking like a towhead. Yeah. So, yeah. The legend is true.
To answer the other comment, I was going to start to describe girth, but I was like, I'll make everybody uncomfortable.
Let's get a Venn diagram.
You want me to go toe-to-toe with a porn star? Let's go.
Yeah.
Again, let's get off the rollers. Told you it's getting schoolyard, but for different reasons. And other things that are going on, home video headlines. The headlines are not about Ron Jeremy. Headlines are about, there's this guy. I guess he does he's like a YouTuber now. But I wanted to look up like his merits. He's like more legit than I thought. When I first because he calls himself the Chieftain. I'm like, oh man, he's just a guy that talks about tanks, you know? But then I looked him up. No, this guy, Nicholas Moran, I guess he is a former tank platoon leader, so I guess he knows his stuff, obviously. But he was saying, you know, the battle at the end of Rambo 3 between the helicopter and the tank is bogus. And I was thinking, you know, like a couple months ago, I watched Rambo 3, and it's probably the first time I saw Rambo 3 in like 20 years. This is the least Rambo that I've seen. I've watched the first one several times. It's like a drama. And the other ones are just like action sequels. They got to cash in, right? But yeah, I remember the fight. Like the tank is aiming at a helicopter, and then the helicopter's aiming at the tank. I mean, by the time you get to the tank for this helicopter, you've already swallowed like Rambo and a bunch of fighters, jihadists or whatever, riding around on horses fighting the helicopter. So if you can buy that, you know what I mean? Like the tank was Russia or whatever. They had to steal it from the other side of this fight. So, and they were only on horses. So I guess if you could like buy that the probability of that, then you could go, oh yeah, you could use a tank to fight a helicopter, but apparently it's like just movie magic. So not to burst anybody if you're an action fan, not to burst your bubble. Do you think people sit around and talk about these scenes in action movies all the time? Do you think they like
Well, I think it's such a funny thing is like the point of where you stop believing the movie magic. Like that's a topic of conversation that needs to be talked about. Or the TV magic,
you're saying because like when you're 12, you're like, that tank just shot a helicopter.
or
then,
even,
like,
even just like what you said in the like duration of the movie, right? Like if you're okay with like all that comes before this tank scene, and then the tank scene's like what does it for you? I'm like, what's the threshold here?
What breaks the disbelief? Like, because you're already going along with the fantasy, and then all of a sudden you get to a point where you're just like,
and you're like,
I can't buy that. Yeah. I just can't buy that. Like, that just is not reliable. Yeah.
We were just talking about the same thing in Breaking Bad, right? Like there's all of the, my friend was like, oh, just that one scene when he goes into like Tuco's like one of the cartel guys that they ended up trying to take over his whole ecosystem. He goes in there to get his money, and Walter White like throws a piece of what looks like the rock on the ground, and it like explodes everything. And that was like my friend's threshold. I was like,
that's what did it.
That's what did it. I was like, what? Okay, interesting.
Oh man. All right. To suspend disbelief even further, there's a rumor that, spoiler alert, that John Cena is making a cameo as one of the Kens in the Barbie movie, but he's like a merkin, like a Ken maid. Ooh. He's like a mermaid Ken, right? Like a merman Ken, merkin,
merkin. Yeah.
Kind of funny.
I'm so excited. All of the different cameos and stuff. Like it's going to be such a good movie to watch.
Everybody gets to be a plastic doll brought to life.
I'm ready for
Goes with this month's theme because we're talking about fantastic movies.
Fantasy, baby.
Yeah. Did you ever see Return of the Living Dead zombie movie? Which is supposed to be a direct sequel to the Night of the Living Dead, but then it's like in the 80s. There's two guys goofing off at like a medical supply store they work at. They accidentally open up the thing that supposedly has toxic chemicals with one zombie, and like it infects the immediate area in like a cemetery. And a group of friends, like some punk teenagers, are trying to deal with it. Supposedly there's a reboot in the works that will expand on the existing world, which doesn't make sense because there's the original, then there's a sequel, which I like. I think it's funny. They even make fun of Michael Jackson Thriller because they have a zombie like Michael Jackson parody in there, which is funny because Thriller was about zombies, and like that was actually cool. Like that was a short movie about zombies with a music video.
Right.
But then they had like, if he showed up in this other world of zombies and was really a zombie, right?
That's pretty funny.
But then they made a couple of like, well, actually, number 3 we had on our Bad Romance. A couple years ago, we included it in our Bad Romance lineup because there's like a girl zombie in there. Like the guy's girlfriend becomes a zombie, but she's like a fully coherent, intelligent zombie, and then like she's slowly becoming like more monstrous, right? And so the first 3 solid. Then they have 2 direct to like. There was this thing called cable, folks, before streamers came out. It was after regular TV, but before the streaming generation, and it's called cable, right? So USA Network decides like we're making Rave to the Dead or whatever, and they had another sequel too, but it was just like the name. It was just like how they do that thing with a franchise name, but it's not. There's no connection to the other movies or whatever, just the name. Oh, and the chemical X or whatever it is, the thing that they decided what makes the zombies. Even though, however, there was a comet in Night of the Living Dead that flew overhead, and the radiation is what turned people into zombies. So having a chemical in the zombies, I don't know how it relates to the original, but whatever. Return of the Living Dead classic. Go get it. We were talking about a special effects guy whose daughter was interviewed by us recently, and he did the special effects on that, so that was good.
Ooh, so cool.
I'm like talking about our own podcast and like forgotten elements of it. I'm just like, oh yeah, you did this thing. You did this thing. I guess go find it wherever you get your podcasts. Like, that's stupid. Wow. We're at tonight's movie. All right, here it is, folks. The fate of mankind hangs in the balance when a ruthless prince. Roofless. Yeah, he has no roof. He has no kingdom. Anyway, the prince, he's going to bring out this army of unstoppable creatures called the Golden Army to wage war with all the humans. So it's up to Hellboy and his team of paranormal outcasts to face off with the forces of darkness in the ultimate battle, good versus evil. From the director of Pan's Labyrinth, he also made the first Hellboy. It's Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. Takes you into the world of imaginative creatures. It's got thrilling fight sequences. I don't know. Depending on the version that you pick up, it's either Hellboy or Hellboy 2. And this description came from the description I'm reading comes from a Blu-ray reseller site. Amazon is even more basic. It's just like Hellboy fights a world of imaginary creatures. I'm like, oh, thanks. You know, like Amazon Prime.
Yeah, and don't allude to them being imaginary in the synopsis when it's like this is literally
it can't be imaginary if they're supposed fantasy. To be. It's like
real.
Yeah, they're real in this version of this world. Everything that was imaginary in our world from fairy tales is actually alive and well and thriving. So it's like you can't say
imaginary.
Yeah, it's kind of like what? Is that an oxymoron? No. Is it?
That is legit an oxymoron. It's like pretty ugly, right? Yeah. It's like, okay.
If you disagree, write to us. Whatever. Write to Jordan's cat. Like, have him deal with it.
Frank will take all those inquiries.
Yeah. It's got Selma Blair. It's got Doug Jones. It's got Ron Perlman. Jordan probably has put together some tidbits for you to savage stats, if you will.
I'll start off with some of your favorite stuff, which is whenever movies are rooted in some mythology. So let's see. The outline of the movie revolves a great deal around Ireland and Irish mythology. Nuada is the name of the first king of the mythological Tuatha De Danann people. Sorry if I butchered that. The mythological Nuada. I don't know if that's what.
Yeah. Yeah, Middle Gaelic. You're trying to say Tiernanog, I think. Yeah.
There's Tuatha, they, D-E, and then Dan and people. They're a type of people, but that's how maybe you have the more correct pronunciation for that. Yeah. The mythological Nuada bore the epithet Silverhand because of having lost his arm in battle. He wore a
Let me give you a real quick savage stats about how much I know about Irish culture. Irish blood runs through me. I'm not 100% Irish, but some Irish blood runs through me. But all I know about Irish culture is printed on the label of the bottle. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. You know what? I love it. In the movie, Nuada's epitaph, the silver lance, and Nuada's father, Baylor, had a mechanical arm. So that's where that comes from. But I really like to talk about the effects because I believe this movie won an Academy Award for best achievement in makeup.
No confirmation, just we're going by what the website says. Like you're like, I think it did. Let's call the Academy.
Don't quote me on stats. Oh, there you go. As Angel of Death, Doug Jones could only see out of the crack across the mask that he wore. The mechanical wings that he was wearing as well weighed about 40 pounds. So he was supposed to be like walking around live set, but they actually had to suspend him because they were so incredibly heavy. He had to stand. And they just kind of like hung from a wire. So that's why the Angel of Death floats. Those wings were incredible too, with all of the like eyeballs in them. So
yeah, it's crazy. Like Guillermo del Toro has like his artwork of his notebook of artwork, and so his monster style from like Pan's Labyrinth like bleeds into the Hellboy comic book style in this movie. It's like the clash of two worlds, literally visually as well.
I was curious if there were like any sort of things that like, you know, kind of bled through, like that were legit. But yeah, you could definitely tell. I haven't made it through all the way of Pan's Labyrinth, but I could see the resemblance for sure of the creatures. So Doug Jones played the physical part of Abe Sapien. He also does a voice in the second movie. He did not do the voice of Abe in the first movie. And the reason because of this was they hoped that Pierce's name would so David Hyde Pierce was the first voice in the original Hellboy. they did that to try to make the movie a box office smash, but he actually refused to have like kind of like glory, if you will, and wanted it to be credited because
isn't that kind of scary and sad? You're like, your fantasy movie rests on the shoulders of the brother from Frasier. Like how well the first Hellboy's gonna do. Oh man.
Yeah. So he just felt that Abe Sapien was not his own personal work, even though he did the voice in the first one, and that it was more of Jones. So he did no promotions, nothing to like, didn't attend the premiere. So thought that was super interesting. And then in this movie, Doug Jones actually, for the Angel of Death specifically, they recorded each of his lines twice in different pitches, and then they played them together in order to give Angel of Death that sound. So I thought that was awesome. Those are stats.
Okay, I'll talk quickly about the cast. We mentioned Selma Blair. She's well known for Cruel Intentions, Legally
Blonde,
The Sweetest Thing. She has over 80 movie credits, which I didn't realize.
Me either.
Big star, mid to late 90s, early 2000s. Unfortunately, now she's dealing with MS, and there's a documentary about her. I think it's called Introducing Selma Blair, which is like that phrase, introducing, is what they do when like you're a new actor and it's your first gig, right? Which is kind of interesting. I'm sure it ties into like the story of what's going on with her, but I haven't seen it yet. I did win some awards, so it might be good. I don't know. I feel bad not having watched it because I'm bringing it up, but it's out there. And Doug Jones, as Jordan was saying, he does a lot of special effects. He's like the monster guy. He's Billy Batterson from Hocus Pocus. He's been around the block a while. It's cool to see him actually play the monsters and do the voices now. He's the Baron in What We Do in the Shadows, which is the vampire sitcom.
Yeah.
And then he's Commander Saru, which is a now famous character in Star Trek Discovery, which is one of the new Paramount Plus Star Treks. That's probably his. I'm trying to think. Hocus Pocus is a big deal. Oh, Shape of Water. He played the amphibian, which is kind of like, what's really funny is
that he's an amphibian.
The amphibian in Shape of Water is like Abe Sapien from Hellboy. You know.
Well, and they kind of have that like soft nature too. You know, I loved that movie so much, and I did feel that in this.
I think their source material is probably the same, like the idea of the creature from the Black Lagoon, like a humanoid fish type dude,
right?
And then Ron Perlman, who like he gets on the map, I think, from playing the Beast in Beauty and the Beast in like an 80s show, 80s, 90s, maybe early 90s. Maybe it ended in 92, 91. There was a thing in the early 90s where the sitcoms not sitcoms, but the dramas ended with like the main characters getting killed. Like there's like the trial and death of the Incredible Hulk. Then like in Beauty and the Beast, Linda Hamilton from Terminator is like playing the Beauty, and then they're gonna have like a half human, half monster kid or something. And I think the government, the FBI, somebody I think is trying to take the kid or take. All I know is like there's like a shootout, the Beast gets obliterated, right? So you're like, dang, what a way to end the show. But you know, Ron Perlman's been in. I think Guillermo del Toro did Nightmare Alley. If I'm wrong, hang me, whatever. And he's been in like every Del Toro thing, as far as I can tell. Like he was in Kronos, which is like a vampire's immortal story. He's in another good horror movie called The Last Winter. He's obviously Hellboy. He's the title character.
Right.
He was in Ice Pirates, which we covered maybe last year. A couple holiday seasons ago, whatever.
That was last year for fantasy, I think.
And he's the other pirate with like the mustache, who's kind of like the sidekicky one with the fashion sense, but he's not the main one. He's like the third or fourth pirate. Blade 2, again, another movie that Del Toro made where he's like a vampire that has a grudge against Blade, and he's like on a special team to get rid of Blade. You know. Also, he plays Johnner in Alien Resurrection, which is like there's a salvage crew that's trying to outwit the aliens aboard a ship where all the aliens are breaking out because they were cloned from Ellen Ripley from Aliens.
You could go down a long list of
lots of. I mean, the guy again, like we talked about, like how Selma Blair has 80 credits. I mean, Ron Perlman himself has like hundreds of credits. It's funny too. Like Hellboy is younger than the actor himself. Like I think in the sequel he was already in his 50s and playing like Hellboy, who was like basically immortal or whatever. I'm sure the makeup for him was killer too. Ooh. So we'll be right back after these messages with our favorite bits. Cannonballs? The summer is not about the size of those cannonballs. It's about making a splash with our friends, Manscaped. Prep for barbecue season by making sure your grill master has the hottest dogs the summer has ever seen. When you're out of that cookout, let the meat speak for itself with Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0. It's time to get ready and not sweaty by going to manscaped.com and using code BWPOD for 20% off and free shipping. Look, we've all heard of Netflix and chill, but sometimes it's not easy to chill when you're dealing with ED. That's where Eddie, a revolutionary device designed to help with symptoms of erectile dysfunction, comes in. Designed by urologists, Eddie is an FDA Class 2 medical device that's been shown to help men increase intimacy levels with their partners. If you're looking for an easy way to boost your confidence in the sheets, give Eddie a try and put your performance anxiety to bed. Right now, you can save 20% on Eddie. Go to buyeddie.com/binge-watchers and use our code 20 you'll get 20% off if you use code BINGE20. Use BINGE20 for 20% off. And then fast forward your way past performance issues and try Eddie today. Now we're back with our favorite bits from Hellboy 2. You know, I should be honest right up front and just let you know, like, I was super excited whether I gave it away last week or not that Hellboy 2. I love this movie. Can't believe I rotated it into the playlist finally. And we're talking about it. We're going to review it. This is a fun show for me. I don't know.
Starting with the bits, I was grateful you rotated this in because I watched the first one and I'll talk about it actually in the staff picks. But yeah, one of my favorite bits, it's almost in every movie that has like a bazaar or like a market is one of my favorite parts of the entire movie. I feel like seeing like the busyness, the troll market. I love how they have to get into the troll market. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they're having to use the like different dimension glasses, if you will, or the glasses that actually allow them to see these more paranormal creatures that are about.
Yeah. And I'm kind of a dork for the details or whatever. So like when they said like, oh, these were patented in 18 something. They're the only goggles that will allow us to see a troll or whatever. Like, and they all have to use them.
Right. Great. That's so cool. And then they're able to see this little old lady actually be who she truly is, which is this like troll creature that eats cats. And I do love that Hellboy. Like he loves kitties. So that was really cool. And just the hustle of the market, you know?
You get to watch an old lady get punched out, which the sadist in all of us will love because she's really a troll.
Yes.
And she offends cats, right? The whole thing is he has like 35 kittens.
Yeah, and she is quite an ugly creature. So yeah, when he just
she's like just oozing blobs when you see what she looks like. Yeah, hairy blobness.
And then just like the details in the market, right? I always think it's like really cool and like legitimizes the fantasy itself. Is like there's like these creatures collecting together, and yeah, it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, they tried to make like a melting pot of like 100 years worth of monsters all hanging out and selling products and whatever in the troll market. There's like, it's like blink and you miss it. I don't know how many monsters they made between CGI and actual makeup effects. They use a lot of puppetry. Looks like. I mean, Guillermo was a stickler for trying to make you feel like you're in the world.
It's real.
He's creating. Yeah. So, yeah, the troll market's awesome.
Yeah,
what else?
It does a really good job of that. It was good. It was so good.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to like because I watched both of them back to back too. Yeah. So it's like it feels like one really long movie, but yeah. So
yeah, the first two are really tight. Like the story kind of carries over. Okay, here I go. Favorite bits. I like the fairy tale opening. I like establishing the story in a fairy tale, and we feel like it's a real fairy tale from our world. And well, you said some of the material is from like Irish mythology, which is cool. Mm-hmm. And then like it kind of weaves in one of the characters that's a fallen. He's not around in the second one. He got taken out in the first one. Professor Broom, who's like his father figure of Hellboy, and there's a flashback which he's telling the story of this fallen elf kingdom and their notorious army fighting humans like hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, medieval stuff, whatever. So that's kind of a cool opener. And then the big green plant, which is like a kaiju thing, which is really funny because Guillermo del Toro will go on to make Pacific Rim, right? Which is about kaiju, Godzilla-style monsters fighting robots. But there's a big, giant green plant, green bean. It's like basically the beanstalk came to life and ate Jack instead of Jack trying to climb it, right? Is kind of the thing, which is really cool. Then I wrote down, you already mentioned like the Angel of Death. The death figure in this show or this movie is so freaking awesome. It stands out in your mind and you'll remember it if you watch this movie. And I mean, there's so much. I think Jordan settled on the troll market, but you could say like there's set pieces galore in this movie. Lots of costumes, lots of characters, lots of monsters, different mythologies blending together. I'm a Hellboy
details
fan.
Are insane. Like even with the green monster, when it dies, it turns into this really cool mossy, beautiful flowers coming up.
Oh yeah, there's like a moment of reflection with all the characters, like something beautiful in the world just died or whatever. I'll give we'll jump into ratings because I was about to say also the rankings of the movies. Also, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, the audience can guess which way I'm leaning. So
right, totally. It was a binge now for me. I haven't seen the Hellboy series.
like you never know. You never know.
No,
with this gal. She's gonna waver.
Yeah. I know when it's gonna be a binge now for you, and it's not for me, and I'm like, oh god, like he's gonna. No, this was totally a binge now. I loved it so much. Even the first one, right? They're like. They bring out the history of like how he comes to be and how he comes to be in our world, and then watching him later in life, and then now he's like on to the next phase after his father has been killed, and like how he's still helping out, the government and just try to fight crime essentially with these paranormal beings that come to attack society.
Well, the first one is cool because the villain is Rasputin, right? Who's a Russian wizard from back in the day, but they wrote him into the Hellboy comic. And then, well, maybe I'm ruining your staff pick. Maybe I'm stepping on your staff pick because you might mention the big giant Lovecraftian monsters.
It was just
all right. I'll back off a little. Anyway,
but again, it's like I watched them back to back, so it was 5 hours of just like good action-packed good stuff.
Spoiler alert: there's like a sacrificial ending in both movies. So Liz Sherman, the human psychic who can light things on fire, whatever, fire starter, if you will.
Yeah.
She's gonna die, and Hellboy's like, hey, who's ever up there, who's ever in charge of this thing, like, he's like, I could try to help people, or I could do what I'm destined to do, which is be the Antichrist or whatever. He's like, it's your choice. He's like, I'm playing my cards because he wants to save her life. And then in the second one, he might be dying, and then she's trying to convince like the figure of death to save him or whatever. So they kind of switch the roles there.
That creature was cool too. The goblin who created all of the golden.
Oh man, look at the things I make! All these shiny things or whatever.
But yeah, binge now.
Yeah, I agree. Binge now. Official rankings though, I gave this to Jordan the other day. I'll give it to the audience. Hellboy 2 is my favorite, followed by Hellboy 1. These are the Ron Perlman Hellboys. I think I need to point that out because just like last year, maybe 2 years ago, they did another one with David Harbour where he took over the role of Hellboy. It adapts another major comic book arc, but it's not as good, in my opinion, as the Ron Perlman Hellboys. And then I like there are a couple animated movies with the cast of the first two Hellboys. So Ron Perlman, Selma Blair, and Doug Jones, they're voicing characters in the cartoons. So the animated movie Blood and Iron, which is a vampire story, is cool.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah. Fan service. Well, we talked about them at the beginning of the episode because there had erroneous comments. I actually took the time to make the comments screen captures. I actually forgot to include one of the other ones, the one who was asking me to do do a demo of manscaping. I forgot to put that in.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, I was about to say, we'll save it for another day and time, but I just mentioned it, so I don't know. Jordan finds it interesting. 3 dots. Staff picks. If you watched another movie, yeah, I got her to gulp. If you watched another movie, she's having fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's Hellboy 2. If you watched another movie that you can recommend to the audience should be watching or tuning into, that's not the movie of the week that we covered, what is it? Jordan, do you have something?
We talked about the first Hellboy. That was excellent. I'm glad I did take the time to watch the first one before watching Hellboy 2. Again, with the cadence of like both movies back to back like that, it was such like a little adventure today. I feel like it's really consistent and there's like no slow moments, which I love that in a movie, no matter, how long the time commitment it is. So that was awesome. And then I did watch an interesting Nat Geo documentary called Free Solo. Have you ever heard of it? It's not fantasy based, but I was sweating.
It's rock climbing,
the entire time.
With no ropes, no safety guides, or they're just like stepping on little tiny cracks with their
He does
feet and
El
hands.
Capitan in Yosemite. It's like 3 Empire State Buildings practically, and he does it without it. So if you want to literally sweat out of your hands and feet for like a full hour and a half, go watch it. So yeah.
I'm watching this documentary. Suddenly I have clammy palms.
Yeah. Like it will, it's just so intense. You're at the edge of your seat the entire time. So
I don't know. I mostly live vicariously through movies. I had mentioned last week I was going to mention Guardians of the Galaxy because I had a different staff pick. So I was like, oh, I'll wait. So Guardians of the Galaxy 3, for me, it feels like too little too late. Although I do like shipping Nebula and Star-Lord over Star-Lord and trying to get Gamora back. However, one of my favorite characters from Marvel is Adam Warlock, who's like, everybody talked about Thanos before during Endgame, how powerful that character was or whatever. Adam Warlock is just as powerful, had an important part to play in the Infinity Stone like comic book run, but then he's introduced to the Guardians as like an anti-hero, which is cool. He should be an anti-hero because at different parts of the story he's a villain, in other parts of the story he's a hero. However, he's kind of a joke in this movie, right? So I'm like, oh man, they're bringing an awesome character to the screen, but he's kind of like a one-note joke. And I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. And whatever, there's too much nepotism going on in this movie. James Gunn has too much power. We'll see what he does with Superman. Who knows? Because he's in charge of DC now that he's not with Marvel. Whatever. We'll see what happens. Just maybe too many expectations of a movie. I am watching this like Stephen King-esque show called From, which is about people trapped in this town. They can't leave, and if they don't hide at night, these creatures come out and eat them horribly, brutally.
The poster for that show looks terrifying.
Yeah,
when we were
it's
trying
like
to
a
pull
Stephen
up Free
King
Solo,
novel. It's
it was right there.
It's like kind of Needful Things, a little bit of Salem's Lot. Like it feels like it's. I mean, clearly. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who's technically behind it, who created it, or what it is, but it's very Stephen King-y. It's by MGM Plus, which wasn't a network before, but is now. Like, right?
Of course.
All the MGM stuff. We had mentioned them like maybe 6 months ago, wondering what they were going to create. This is probably one of their better offerings. The Brutals are horrible, horrible, horrible. They like eat all of your internal organs, and you're just like ravaged. I can't, and they're showing it in brutal detail. So you believe the monsters are scary. You're afraid of them, and it's confusing. But then it has the typical tropes of like what would be a Stephen King miniseries, like weird characters that could be part of the plot devices. usually in like Stephen King miniseries like The Stand, you had these psychic figures that were pitted against each other. And there's characters kind of like that. There's like an autistic guy who's like drawing things as they happen in this, and he's connected to what's ever going on. But the monsters appear to you as like your loved ones or your friends who may or may not be dead. And
so spooky.
And then they morph, like then they become like vampiric monster. I don't want to like just saying vampire is like too short because they're like, man, I don't know how to appropriately describe the monsters, but
that's kind of cool about it, though, right?
Boy, oh, talking about mythology, they're using They have a charm that they hang on their windows. They think will keep them out. And if you look closely, it's actually the Norse symbols of shield of protection, right? Which is like Valhalla, like all that stuff, like all the Viking stuff, Norwegian stuff, Odin, Odin and Freya. So who knows? I don't know if that'll tie in or not, but yeah. And then because they're trapped in a town and they can't leave it, some of them are actually just going nuts, right? And causing problems for the community or whatever. What? Oh yeah, it's higher position because it's like I don't know if you got into any of the Netflix shows that they made recently with haunted houses, but this is like on that level, maybe a little higher.
So. I love those. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I've seen a lot of monsters, but the brutality of what they do makes you kind of scared of them, and you're like, "Oh, good job."
Well, and like it's cool that you can't really describe it, which means that there isn't something else out there like them.
Quite like
you know
what
I'm saying?
They were able to find something that
is like
stand on its own.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
I don't like the others. I mean, there's other stuff that I don't like, but the monster concept itself, I'm super into.
Sweet.
What else is going on? I think we covered everything. Oh, except for to give them a preview of next week. So there's a movie made in like the 60s or 70s called Clash of the Titans, and it's cool. Pegasus flies around. Perseus flies around on a Pegasus, and he gets like a sword. He's like a demigod son of the Roman version of Odin, or the Greek version of Odin, based on the Roman version of Odin, Zeus. So yeah, he's like half god son of Zeus. He gets cursed. Spoiler alert, like he has tragedy early in his life, has to learn how to deal with his godly powers. Then goes on a quest, obviously, and he gets like, there's like an owl, a mechanical owl in the original, and they kind of spoof the owl. Like the owl pops up as a prop in the remake, but not necessarily a main character. For any particular reason, the guy who played Voldemort plays Hades in the remake.
Interesting.
And Mads Mikkelsen, who we've talked about several times on this show, plays one of the human soldiers in the remake. And then the remake deviates, and they have these magical mage creatures, which are maybe from a different mythology or something. They're like made out of wood, but they got magic and they help. But I should say, I think it's is it Harry S. Housen? There's a famous sci-fi guy that did all the early sci-fi stuff, and he did the monsters in original Clash with like claymation, skeleton soldiers, giant scorpions, and then like obviously Clash of the Titans, the remake is mostly CGI, but intended to be like a 3D monster event, right? But the Kraken is amazing, and the Kraken was amazing in the original. It's amazing it had to be amazing in the remake as well. But it's like blasphemy to say that I like the 2010 version better, but I actually have watched that more than I've watched the original. And I just like the way the story deviates. Like there's like heretics, like religious fanatics that want to burn the princess in the remake, which I think is an interesting story detail that the other one doesn't have, even though they are trying to sacrifice the princess to the Kraken in the first one. Because that's the thing, like the Greek gods, Zeus and his buddies, feel like humans are not respecting them. So they're like, let's just release this giant monster and kill everyone, unless they come back and respect us again. That's the general conceit. And then Perseus is like, I hate all the gods. You screwed up my whole life, dude. I'm going to use your magic sword against you, bruh. It's kind of generally how it goes. So we're going to watch the remake, Clash of the Titans 2010, and then find out whether or not Jordan Savage likes it, doesn't like it, can recommend it.
I've loved Fantasy Month so far. So
you're like, yeah. I'm just trying to create some controversy, drama. That's what they love. They
Put 'em
love
up.
the drama.
Talk more about my forehead again, guys. Just kidding. Ooh.
Oh man. Anything this week? I used all my quips earlier in the episode.
You know, sometimes.
Sometimes, folks, there's no reason to stay after the song. That's pretty good.
Yeah, you know, the song is kind of the signing off.